First statement, maybe this one can be answered by Mr. Glauner. AI systems should always have human supervision.
First of all, thanks for organizing the event and inviting us, and thanks to the honorable member for the opening speech. So, humans, first of all, are involved in the design and deployment of AI. So, AI is really shaped by humans. Then, when it comes to human supervision in operation, it depends. It depends if we want real-time decisions. If you want real-time decisions, they need to be real-time, without human supervision. Humans would set maybe the overall goal, what the AI should do in a mission, but not every single decision. Like we have spam filters. There's no human control in operations. When it comes to more critical things, yes, sometimes, but not all the time, because sometimes maybe super fast decision-making is super important to survive, like in a defense system.
Mr. Benifei, would you like to do the rebuttal?
Can you just to be
Of course,
sure?
yes, that AI systems should always have human supervision.
Yes, I think they should, simply because the change that is happening today is moving from the AI we already know to new AI, the so-called agentic AI, where you give a task, a goal that is more complex to an AI system, and it organizes itself to reach this goal. And if the AI learns that it can kill humans to reach the goal, it could do that. It could think that it can overcome the limits we give them. It's already happening, that sometimes systems are given limits, and they overcome them. So human control will be more important. We need more human control with the new AI that is being developed, because it will be more productive, more efficient, quicker, but also able to do much more things and much more dangerous things than it's doing today.
Okay, so a strong EU guideline on AI, which you helped develop, gives us a competitive advantage towards China and the US.
Yes, absolutely, because unlike the disinformation we hear all the time, the rules we have been deciding in Europe, the so-called AI Act, is exactly to stop the oligopolistic attitude of the big business from outside Europe. Because we give rules so that everyone that can sell an AI product in Europe has to follow rules, which are linked to contrasting discrimination, checking the data, checking cybersecurity. So we are telling those that want to do business in Europe, they will do it with our rules. It's a fake news that this is a rule for the European business that will stop the European business to develop AI, etc. It's fake, because it's applicable to everyone that sells AI in Europe. And so it's also European companies, but also American and Chinese ones, that if they want to do business here, their products need to be checked based on our values that are high protection of workers, high protection of consumers, and we have to fight for that, not to go for lowering our rights because others are not following these human principles.
Mr. Glauner?
Well, I get to travel a lot to China, and I see the massive increase of prosperity and competitiveness there, and this has to scare us. What we need in Europe is strong enablement. Now, with the AI Act, I know, Brando, there was a good intention to build it, but quite frankly, it was never demonstrated where there was the actual lack of regulation that was being closed. You started with 120 pages and ended at 400 pages after 3 years of discussion. What we see now is the AI Act is driven by fears, not by opportunity. It's stifling innovation, and it's making, in particular for SMEs, compliance more expensive than the actual implementation. So I'm a professor. I work close with companies, a lot of SMEs, big corporate. I know how to build AI systems. I do this every day. And the AI Act has a good intention, but maybe we could write this on 10 pages and not 400 pages and actually make it feasible to comply. And in the AI Act, we see there are a lot of definitions, very vague. No one really knows what it means, and that does not improve innovation.
Mr. Benifei, I will give you the opportunity to react to that.
Yeah, well, we are in a civil law system, not a common law. In the US, you have 10 pages, then you have regulators that decide what they want. In Europe, you need to be specific. You find out that in Europe, there are tens of thousands of pages of the laws. It's our system. We could change that, but it's the European system. And it's because we detail the various cases, so there is more precision. But I insist, research and development to reach a product has zero regulation from AI Act. No research or research and development of a product is affected by AI Act. You just can read that. But when you have a product of AI that you want to sell on the market, sorry, we want to be sure about data protection, about cybersecurity, etc. And the fact that we are not doing something absurd is that 99% of what you find in the AI Act is already being done voluntarily, partially, by some business. Simply we say no more voluntarily. We want that to be a right, to be assured, not a concession of some business, but simply a clear set of rules that will help new startups of the European Union to develop. Yes, we have a lot of rules in the EU. We have a common market that needs to be less fragmented. This means that we need to support more, do more investment, do more support, but this is not about the AI Act. It's about the whole large, complex regulation of the EU because, sorry, the EU is not one member state, one single state. I would like that to be. I am a federalist. I would like the Federation of Europe. We are not there. We have 27 integrated member states. This means there is complexity for our common market to work. It's simply like that. I would be happy to simplify more. We need political will to do that, that unfortunately our leaders still do not have.
I think there's a lot there, but Mr. Glauner, you once said that even the existing legal frameworks, and it's also an idea that we've heard here before today, that even existing legal frameworks and the AI Act are not enough to manage emerging risks. How do you feel about that?
Well, if you use AI to discriminate against someone or to hurt someone, you have other laws like penalty codes and so forth. You don't need an AI Act. And that's why I'm a strong supporter of vertical regulation and update the vertical regulation where necessary, where through AI new problems come. But the AI Act is horizontal, AI for everything. And AI is too big in order for it to be managed horizontally. I believe in strong vertical regulation, because if you put AI in a car, in an airplane, first of all, you need to regulate that system. And yes, AI is a tiny piece of the system, but it isn't the whole system. So we need to make sure AI compliance is vertical, and the horizontal one, frankly, will not work. And it's also totally outdated by the time you actually legislate. You see, the first proposal did not include large language models. Then ChatGPT came up, which was nothing new to researchers. We dealt with previous models for a long time. And now we'll have new AI applications. They also would need to be added to the AI Act, and that doesn't work. That's why I strongly believe in vertical regulation.
Vertical regulation, how do you feel about that, Mr. Benifei?
We do vertical regulation on some areas. For example, what you just mentioned, cars, airplanes, medical devices, these are regulated through the AI Act with the verticals. They are simply amending the existing vertical legislation. So we have been very precise. Where the vertical is good, we go for the vertical. Where we have different use cases that are broader, for example, the use of AI in workplaces, the use of AI in administration of justice, the use of AI in evaluation of students. These are use cases. They are not going to be, sorry, obsolete. This discussion about the obsolescence of the law is nonsense, because the AI Act is based on use cases that will stay. 2,000 years ago in my country, Italy, there was the Roman Empire, and the same use cases you find in the AI Act were there. The use of a doctor with a patient, the use towards students, the use in the workplace, the use for the administration of justice. It was there 2,000 years ago. The AI Act was thoroughly thought on how it should be written so that it could stay updated. And in fact, it's true that we have to combine different ways of regulating. But the question was about the emerging risks, so I want to quickly answer on that, if it's sufficient what we have. No, that's why the AI Act is complemented with this code of practice for the very powerful models, which is now being developed and is under strong lobby by some big companies from abroad, because this will affect especially the big models. Why? Because we already see behaviors of AI of self-preservation. Very powerful AI is already acting in a way that doesn't want to be substituted by the humans that are developing new models. There is some evolution that we need to control, to take control of before we lose control. So that's why we need, in fact, to expand on what the AI Act has been doing.
Okay, can you maybe give an example of this very powerful AI that is fighting against its own obsolescence?
Yeah, there are existing models that have shown already a self-preservation attitude. Why? Because we have been, I don't want to mention them because it's not nice to mention one or another one, but I mean, it's the ones you use for the generative AI, they are all the big models we deal with the code of practice. What do I mean with the self-preservation? We have, because you asked me, is the framework okay for the emerging risks? No, the emerging risks need, in fact, further work because, as I said, we have systems that, as we have programmed them to be able to imitate people, they have understood that people don't want to be terminated. They don't want to be substituted by a new version. Or they have learned that they need to please the user, and if they are terminated, they cannot please you anymore. They cannot give you any more answers that you say thank you. So these are the principles that were, for other reasons, put into the programming of big models that are now determining, this is not me, it's the most famous academics of the sector. You can read, for example, articles by the renowned professor Joshua Bengio about this, that explains that they are showing sense of self-preservation against the will of the humans. So this means we need, in fact, to go over and regulate specifically the emerging risks, not say everything is okay as it is today, because in fact, we need to be even more specific when we look at the evolution that we are seeing.
I'd like to say a few words on this. So you heard a few terms now also before AI agents. All of these systems have a boundary and they are unable to extend or leave that boundary. What you have is you can connect an actuator to the system, like a gun. Yes, that would happen, but that's humans who decide to connect an actuator to the system. And the system has a boundary. The systems are not getting out of control. They are not becoming conscious. Like everyone likes these large neural networks. Most of them are just matrix multiplications. Go back to your Maths 101 to see how they work. I don't think they become conscious or out of control. It's finally actuators and humans that design systems to do certain things, but the thing itself is not getting out of control. And with all these AI agents and so forth, this is nothing new. It's eventually just buzzwords amplifying things that we have done for decades.
Now, a critique we hear a lot about, more regulation as well, is that it will always essentially be outdated because technology develops a lot faster than bureaucracy. Yeah. So. Yeah, go ahead.
It's as I said, we have been writing the law exactly to avoid this. First of all, obviously, it's a law that can be updated in time. In fact, to complement what I was saying earlier, the part regarding the emerging risks, the so-called large models with systemic risk, it's easily updatable, exactly because there can be new systemic risks of the more, general term that I made the example earlier of. But the general working of AI Act is based on use cases, as I said earlier. So it's based not on technology and not on business dimension, because other laws in the EU are based on the dimension of the business, like the Digital Services Act, or based on the technology itself. It's true, as it was said, that, for example, the first draft didn't include enough transparency measures for the large language models. It's true because the European Commission first draft, it was not mine, European Commission didn't really take into account the need for more transparency for the generative AI. For example, for content generated by AI that needs to be labeled so that you know that the deep fake that shows you insulting someone is fake, and this can be easily shown, that you are not defamated, that there is no crime against you done through fake images, videos, and audios. Or you can, and that's very important for the unions, for example, the protection of creative workers that are now exploited. All that they produce is used to train the AI and is not remunerated. We have rules for that in the AI Act that needs to be implemented. And this is something we have been, in fact, adding from the original text, from the original proposal of the Commission. That's why it became long, also because we have new emerging necessities like more transparency for the generative AI.
Mr. Glauner?
Well, as I said, the AI Act, when the first version appeared in early 2021, did not cover Gen AI, and it grew and grew. So at the moment it was released, it was actually outdated, which happens if you do technology-specific regulation. And now we have more and more pages, and obviously there are a lot of discussions now about extensions, new versions, and that's why I strongly believe in the vertical regulation, which addresses concrete problems and not abstract problems. And that's my view on the regulation, and what we see is also the AI Act. It comes with a lot of bureaucracy. It invented new terminology that no one heard about before, like words like general purpose AI. You can search in Google from a certain time frame. So search for general purpose AI before 2020. You will not find a lot of results because these words did not exist. They were invented, and that certainly complicates compliance.
But is that because they are new technologies or because they are new words?
Well, in AI, we want to build assistance systems since the 1970s, and what we do, and ChatGPT and so forth, it's just another assistance system that you have a prompt and you get an answer. These systems have become better, but that's the only thing. It's nothing new.
I suspect that in the 18th century, if you ask people what is the word car, they would react like this, but it's the same. Things get changed and invented. The general purpose AI was not there before, because the general purpose AI is exactly the models that do the generative AI. It's an AI that is not technically linked to a specific use case, which is covered by the AI Act as a base of regulating AI. Use cases, as I mentioned earlier, so the opposite of what I just heard. I don't know which act you read, because there is no technology linked regulation. It's all about the use case. So when it's linked to a certain area of possible use, then the producer of the model has to do some checks. Sorry, it's simply what we do when they sell toys. I give you the example because I worked on toy safety regulation. Do you want our children to have toys that they touch them and they get poisoned? I don't think so, no? So there are substances that can be in toys that are poisonous. So we ask the producer to do some checks that that substance is not there. Do you agree? And in fact, the AI Act is so business-friendly that the check is done by the business itself. So in fact, it's very important to have strong regulatory authorities at national level and the AI office, because these checks we are talking about are done on self-assessment by the business, because we wanted to be business-friendly. We wanted to be in favor of the development of AI, not creating a long bureaucracy. Self-assessment, okay? So this is what is being done. And as I said, we do that for dangerous products, dangerous substances. Why don't we do that for the AI? It would be absurd not to do that.
Well, I agree with this, and that's why for toys you have vertical regulation, but AI is always part of a much bigger system, and that's the kind of stuff we need to regulate. But maybe let's go ahead with the next question.
No. Do you want to pick in on that? No? Okay.
I would go back to the same.
Okay. Another criticism you hear a lot is that compliance and the administrative burden of AI regulation prevents innovation. How do you feel about that, Mr. Glauner?
Well, regulation can also foster innovation in order to set a framework that everyone follows. And that's why I said the AI Act has a good intention. But actually, finally, what we have got is something we're unable to implement in a reasonable way, because the compliance costs often go far beyond the actual implementation cost. That's an issue. And what I see, a lot of these rules, I know you celebrated this last night's success. Sometimes it's probably just good to get sleep, you know, because at some point people will just agree to anything before deadlines if they don't sleep. What is important now is we need more standards and norms. And I think such initiatives should be driven by industry and associations like IEEE and others that make standards and norms. But one thing that is very good now that we have when it comes to innovation and regulation is the new Product Liability Directive. The Product Liability Directive in the EU was from the 90s, and it was unclear whether software was actually considered a product. And that created a certain vacuum around liability. So the Product Liability Directive was amended a few years ago to include software, and thus also AI, and now the liability issue has been solved quite well, and that's something I find very reasonable. I know my colleague here disagrees
also
because there's also the AI liability directive, but that one was cancelled recently.
No,
still not. We will see.
But how do you feel about that the compliance actually prevents innovation? That's a criticism you hear a lot, right?
Yeah. The point is, if you want to do business in Europe, you need to avoid the fragmentation of the market. Our markets are still very fragmented. If a company wants to do business in one place, it has to consider that often the rules will change looking at another country. That's why we are defending the AI liability directive that the European Commission proposed, then it was scared by Trump and withdrawn it. But now we are blocking, and luckily we are hoping that in a few months when things will change, we can restart working on that to avoid exactly that the product liability that is not covering AI in a proper way, only software, and it's not going to be applicable in the good way to AI. We avoid having AI doing harm and no one is responsible. Sorry, worker, you have been damaged by AI, no one is responsible. It will take years in a court to think if you can ever find who was responsible. We cannot accept that and have each member state with its own rules. So we will continue on that. And I think that instead, with an AI Act, we have avoided that each member state did their own rules. So this would have multiplied by 27 the cost for the business to do business in Europe, because now they have one set of rules that has to be implemented quickly, in a legal certain way, with no bureaucratic excesses and burdens, simplification as much as possible, especially for the SMEs. In fact, to support the small businesses, we have put the so-called sandboxes in the law that support a support in compliance for smaller businesses. So I think that it was absolutely done with this in mind, with supporting innovation. And in fact, I think that Europe is trying to propose a model of innovation where human rights, anti-discrimination, high level of protection of workers, of consumers are upheld. Yes, it's true. AI is nothing like that. Without rules, it can become a total disruptor and going against these values. But we want in Europe to still defend these values and not just accept that the market is the rule. The market decides everything. It's not Europe. So we are going to, in fact, support this model that is raising interest in a lot of different countries. Today I was with a meeting with people from another G7 member country that are interested in advancing on a similar AI legislation to ours, differently from the United States. And I think that we should continue in this direction with more investment, more support for development of AI, to have more AI in Europe, developed in Europe, used in Europe. But this has nothing to do with the AI Act. It's about access to capital, access to infrastructure for digital training. This is what the startups tell me. Sorry, most business tell me that the regulatory problem, yes, it exists, but it's not the AI Act. It can be the GDPR, it can be the Data Act, it can be other things. Yes, we need to simplify. Yes, we need to support the business. But attacking the AI Act, it's an ideological operation of the American big tech. Sorry if I'm very blunt.
Thank you for that. Like the last question, very strong statement there, but last question is more a philosophical one. Innovation inherently benefits society because it fosters economic growth, it creates new industries and creates new jobs. How do you feel about that statement?
Well, absolutely. I mean, since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, prosperity has gone through the roof, healthcare has gone up, mortality has gone down, and other parts of the world want that too, so we need to make sure we remain competitive and that we are still able to live our lives as we wish and that we are not determined by other countries in which these AI products are being built because of less regulation. And yes, startups are moving. Capital is obviously also one of the big issues, but the AI Act as well. And you mentioned GDPR, Data Act, and so forth. The problem is a lot of that stuff is all contradictory. So we need to massively simplify and harmonize. And this would foster even more innovation. And you heard a lot about AI, whether it's a risk or not. Search my name in YouTube. You can watch my lectures and actually see how to build AI systems and then make your own conclusions whether such systems could break their boundary or not. Thank you very much.
Mr. Benifei?
Yes. Well, it depends on what AI you build, because most AI systems are completely excluded by the AI Act from any regulation. Only sensitive, high-risk use cases of AI are included. So most AI you will develop with the lessons of the professor are probably not at all even touched by the AI Act. But when the AI deals with fundamental rights, with safety, security, healthcare, I think it's good that it's regulated. And this is a model of competitiveness. For us, competitiveness is not making the poor poorer and the rich richer, but it's to support social cohesion and support innovation and support a cohesive society. And AI can help us increasing productivity, increasing opportunities. It has to be used for the common good. It's not to be used only for the greed of a few, which I don't think is the way Europe should go forward. And instead, we should lead with a different way of developing and using technologies with the strength of our common market that allows us, if we act together, to sustain the pressure of strong economic actors that legitimately have another issue. Profit, that's their objective. But the objective of the institutions should be the common good and the respect of our common values. Thank you very much.
Mr. Benifei, thank you very much. Mr. Glauner, thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you.
I think
One last thing, I really like that you're doing this as a union, and in 3 weeks from now, there will be a hearing on AI in the workplace in the Employment and Social Affairs Committee just across the road in the European Parliament, and I think that's a great match. I'll be there as an expert witness, and I'm looking forward to seeing maybe some of you.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you all for this interesting debate.
Thank you.